Well, hey, thanks for joining with me. We are pressing on into 2 Samuel, getting close to the end of the book. And unfortunately, during this section, we are in a time where we see David's kingship suffering and unraveling. David had destroyed a family, Uriah and his family, and now David is facing the unraveling as a consequence, his own family unraveling in front of his eyes. We see that, we know that David's first son with Bathsheba had died already. We know that Absalom, his son, had killed his half-brother earlier. And now Absalom, though he had run away, he had since come back and we thought restored to the king David. But then in time, he went about stealing the kingdom away from his father, and revolting and having people make him king, and David runs for his life. Wow, we're reading all this, and then in the last couple chapters of this, 17 and 18, Absalom's about to go about then pursuing to take David's life, pursuing him as David flees away from the castle or from the palace and in Jerusalem. And so, but it turns on him. It turns on Absalom, and Absalom is killed. And when he's killed, you would think, let me read to you, as King David hears of his son Absalom's death, the son who's trying to take his life. It's hard to fathom, isn't it? It says in chapter 18, verse 33, the king was overcome with emotion. He went up to the room over the gateway and he burst into tears. And as he went, he cried, "Oh, my son Absalom, oh son, my son Absalom, if I had died instead of you, oh Absalom, my son, my son." It was actually a day of victory for the kingship and the people of Israel, but David could not celebrate. His son Absalom was lost. Again, this is the third son that he has lost. And it's hard to imagine the pain of losing a child. And it was even heavier on him that there wasn't any reconciliation. There wasn't an embrace and fond words exchanged between them before this happened. It was a most painful loss for David. Absalom is dead. And so his heart was aching. It was just tearing him up inside. And he wished that he could give his own life instead of Absalom's son, no matter what Absalom had done to him. And so anyway, it was a dreary day for the king. And I think maybe that you and I can learn a little bit from that, that even though Absalom was truly an enemy at this moment in time, David didn't see him as an enemy. And sometimes it takes us, it takes us so much not to see our enemies as something, as someone to be hated and despised, and for us to want to conquer. But we should learn not to treat our enemies as subhuman. They're people. They're people that should have respect because they're people that God has given life to. And they're people that are made in the image of God, just as we are. And so we need to remember that. We're reminded, Paul reminds us that our enemy is not against flesh and blood. And so we should treat human beings well. There was a quote from Martin Buber who said that human beings are not commodities, they are people. People made by God, and we should give them due respect. And so we see here that David has done that. David, even though his son was an enemy, he mourned deeply. And I think it's not just because of son. That David mourned other deaths. He mourned the death of King Saul, even, who was his enemy, because they were people that God had given life to. And we should treat all people that way as well. Especially in the days that we live, we should remember that all people are to be treated well. And so that's something that you can take as you read these last chapters of Absalom's life, and particularly chapters 17 and 18 as we finish up this week of reading. But I sure do thank you for joining with me, and I pray that this thought is inspiring, maybe not the first thing that comes to mind, but see where God leads you with it as you read it yourself. And maybe the Lord will give you something. Feel free to make a comment and leave something about it. Share the video if you like with a friend. But be blessed. Be blessed in reading God's Word. And we'll get together one last time next week and talk a little bit more as we finish up this book of 2 Samuel. So God bless you, and have a great weekend.